Internet. I created this video a year ago and I shared it to Patreon a year ago. Actually, I did a bit of homework on it, but the gist is this is not a behind the scenes of being an artist. I had like a bit of an idea and then this is the idea. Okay, I thought up this idea last year. I was like, I want to make like a mini series on unfamous famous artists, and then I was like, yeah, I'm going to open up a new YouTube, and then I'm going to have like the videos there and then draw them into like my art video YouTubes and be like, oh, well, I appropriated this painting. But to be frank, I just don't have the time, but I really want to do it. So because I've got a bunch of Patreon videos, like a lot, and it's like, because I'm going towards a timeline, the ones that are finished, I want to share them in a specific section. So it's like those are ready, but the ones that I want to share before that are not ready. So instead, I'm doing this unfamous famous artists video, and I just get to plop it in here and still like cover the ideas that I wanted to cover, but like not in full commitment mode. Invisible melee. So this book, like this is one book that I like to look at just, you know, when I'm making artworks. I'm like, oh, like what kind of scenery, like was the house over there, or like were the stairs over here, or were the stairs doing that kind of thing. Like I like to look at it because, you know, I don't really have time to go out and adventure so much. It's like a short way of adventuring. So I do that, and then like I look at the names. Emmanuel de Witt, I have no idea who that is. Jean-Francois Millet? Thomas Cole, I can pronounce that one. Unknown. Anyway, so I was like, when the artwork in there that I wanted to appropriate, I was looking up the artist and I couldn't find anything. I just couldn't find anything on this artist. So I was like, well, there's a lot of videos on YouTube about artists like Van Gogh and Magritte and everyone, but there's like none on the artists that you don't really know. Like there's some on the artists that are kind of known, but anyway, that's the point of this unfamous famous artists. So that's what I'm doing here. And okay, so there are going to be expletives in this video. So if you're someone who is offended by the fact that I'm going to say the full word instead of substitute it in some sort of manner by like saying the first letter of the word or just censoring it entirely, you should probably leave. There's a few activities you could do. You could buy my coloring in book and color in instead. There's no expletives there. There's no written expletives there, I don't think. You could go make an artwork. Check out my artworks. Go see if you can make a similar one. Anything else except sit here and then be upset later about the fact that I'm using the expletives. So that's that. Okay, also, we need to be skeptical about the information that I've found and that I'm presenting to you through this video, because the internet only started like 20 years ago. Well, it was only really publicly available like 20 years ago. Who knows what the CIA was doing before that? But I'm talking about an artist who was alive in the 17th century, so the 1600s, like 400 years ago. We've got all this missing information, so a lot of it is hearsay and there isn't much written information. I would say like it's probably as reliable as Caravaggio or something, but I wouldn't even say that because there's a lot of like written documents. Like he was in a court case once and there's like a lot of written documents there, so there's no written documents here, and I don't know where these people found their information, but I'm going to rely on this book, Stephen Farthing, I'm so sorry, and chat and the internet and Wikipedia. So proceed with caution with the information I'm providing. David Klocker, Ehrenstrahl. That's it, David Klocker, Ehrenstrahl. Okay, so Ehrenstrahl was not the name that he was born with. It's a title or it's a new last name. This is part of the information that we're not really sure about. So the gist is, first I want to go through the about and then I want to go through family and then career. So it's like his travel kind of fits in the career section, but he does travel around, and then when he travels to Sweden, that's when he gets this extra part of his name. And I'm just not really sure how that part works. All the research I did was incredibly vague, but we do know that he was born David Klocker. And we know that he doesn't have a mother documented anywhere, so she was either just there and like a typical woman of the times and just disappeared, which kind of sucks, or maybe she died. We just have absolutely no information on this woman. But it seems that as if she had 9 children, because it says that he's got 8 siblings in one of the sources that I found. My sources are not reliable at all. But he could have 8 siblings. I feel like he definitely has a father called Johann, Johannn, Klocker. That's his father's name. Apparently no spouses, but then this is where my sources become confusing, because one of the internet sources was like, oh yeah, he's got no wife, and another internet source said her name was Maria Mama, which I just think is it's so sus, because one of the sources says that he has a daughter, and another source says he has a different daughter, and then another source says he has no children. So one of the sources says one of the daughters' name is Anna Maria Ehrenstrahl, but then it's like, why did she take the last name instead of Klocker? And then so she became a Baroque artist. He is technically Baroque, judging by the times. We'll get into that in a bit further. But because her name's Maria, this is why I'm skeptical on why the wife's name is Maria Mama. Because did someone just writing this up be like, oh, okay, the daughter's name is Anna Maria, so the mother's name could be the middle name? I think that's what's going on there, because I only found it in one source. So we're gonna say that no wife? No wife. And I just don't think so. I don't think it would be a Maria, because then Chat also told me that he's got a daughter called Joanna, which I would be more inclined to believe that he had a daughter called Joanna, because in Europe you tend to name your offspring by your parents' name. So if his father's name was Johann, I don't know how to pronounce that, I've never met a Johann, then he would name his daughter Joanna. And then so it's so Gemini. So they're like, so one of the sources where said his daughter name was Joanna, they were like, oh well, he didn't really paint her, but there is one painting of her when she was a child. And I tried looking for this painting and I couldn't find it. And I have like a full list of artworks here. Couldn't find it. It's also not in English either, so a lot of what I was doing was Google Translate. Another scenario is that he has a daughter called Anna Maria. Is that it? Oh, did I not write down her name? Yeah, I did. Anna Maria. So there's another scenario where he's got a daughter called Anna Maria, and then she was a very well-respected artist. But then I think of like, well, it was the 17th century. How far did women get? So I'm more inclined to believe the first scenario. Also, Anna Maria was born when he was 38 years old. So you got to factor in like, okay, well, all right, okay, you're 38 years old with a new child. Sure, work life. So apparently he learned how to paint from his mentor called, I should have learned how to pronounce this before the video. Jurigen. Jurigen? Jacobs. I'm emphasizing the S because it's like Jacob and then S-Z, where'd it go? S-Z-E, Jacobs. So apparently he went to learn from Jurigen Jacobs when he was 20 years old. Is that it, 20? Yeah, 20. Okay, so here's the gist though, because later we go into the artworks and like the dates of the artworks, because I was really curious about that. I don't think he learnt from him and used him as his mentor. I think because Jacobs is only 4 years older than David. So I just like, here I am being 30, I wouldn't go up to a 34-year-old and be like, I need you to mentor me. I wouldn't do that. Like, I'm skilled. And I assume that he was skilled before this because he moved to Amsterdam for this mentorship. So I just don't, I think it was more, hey, we're in cahoots with each other, this is gonna help our careers, you're my mentor. I think like that would make more sense to me in terms of like real life activities as opposed to historical documents being like, okay, he found a mentor 4 years older and then traveled to Amsterdam. Yeah. So 4 years later, when he was 24, he moved to Sweden because a military commander named Carl Gustav Warengel decided to invite him over and be like, hey, I like what you're doing, come over here. So this is why I'm skeptical about the mentorship, because it's like, you didn't just become that good of an artist in 4 years. I think he was talented beforehand and then had some art to show, and then Carl came in and then he was like, okay, we're gonna go to Sweden now. So he went to Sweden and he started living in a castle, which I think is pretty awesome. Oh, by the way, Amsterdam, Netherlands, Stockholm, Sweden. And the castle was called Skrockloster Castle. Skrockloster Castle. He had some sort of titles going on here. So this is where my sources of information become a bit scattered. Definitely in this section here. So I was like, okay, I need a timeline. At age 20 he moved, age 24 he moved again, age 46. We don't know exactly when he gets this extra Ehrenstrahl name, but it could be at age 46, judging by this book here. That's when he gets the extra name, which would be like 22 years after he moved. So it's like, okay, you had enough time to build some camaraderie and then like get some status. Another source says at age, this source here actually, this one here says at age 72, he then got court steward as a title. And I don't know what these mean. And another source says at age 76, he was ennobled by Queen Ulrika Eleonora of Sweden. So that was 4 years before his death. And then I think maybe that means he got the title von there. So he either got a few titles along the way, or a few people are wrong about when he got what specific titles. And then here comes in like questions, because he was 46 when this book says that he got the Ehrenstrahl extra last name. But Maria, the supposed daughter, her last name, so her full name was Anna Maria Ehrenstrahl, but she was born when he was 38. And I just don't know how name changing works back then. So I'm kind of like, okay, that's another point against that woman being his daughter. Or he got the name sooner than being 46 years old. So there's a few discrepancies there. We don't know when he got his name. We don't know if that woman's his daughter. Artworks. So this is the whole reason I pretty much started this, because when I watch other videos of people talking about artists, I'm really interested in knowing like the graph and the timeline of when the artworks were created. So like if you looked at my artworks, you would see like a few and then like a little drop when I was a teenager, because like the crowd I was around was like, what the fuck is art? And then you'd see me like in my mid-20s be like, okay, 104 artworks every year, including the digital artworks. So that would be an interesting graph to see. And I'm so curious about other artists, like, and the famous ones too, because like I know Picasso made 50,000 artworks, which I just think is like a lot. I think everyone thinks that's a lot. If you do the math on that, that's a lot. Giorgio de Chirico, he only made like 180, I think 150. It was in the hundreds. It was before 200 artworks. Dali, and I don't look at his artworks, he made about 2,000, and I'm aiming to beat 2,000. So I'm really curious about like the peak and drops of when they made those artworks. And it's like in the drops, was it because they were working on one specific artwork, or were they working on many and then the end date is when it was done? He had 193 artworks, and judging by my graph, the dates were a bit, like the data in this is questionable, specifically the dates. And then when I looked in further, the artworks are also questionable. So one, apparently he made when he was 1, and another artwork he made when he was 7, and then apparently no artworks until the age of 22. But he started his mentorship mentoring when he was 20. And I just don't see a scenario in real life where you just go up to someone and be like, I have no artworks, train me. Someone 4 years older than you. I think either they're not recorded correctly, the dates, they're not recorded at all, or he was making a lot of artworks and then a few years later did a few touch-ups and then said, okay, this is the actual year that I finished the painting. So it's one of those scenarios, or yeah, it's just one of those scenarios. In my graph, the peak age is 64, when he was making most of his artworks. And I'm just curious because like, when were all these little titles that he got? He just made a shitload of artworks at 64. If you look at the rest of the graph, it's roughly about 2 to 3 paintings each year. And looking at my peers, I would say that's probably right. Like I look at their artworks and like they're really milking one artwork for a really long time and then they go on to the next one. There's a train outside and I don't know if you can hear it. So I'm just gonna pause. The internet says he's a Baroque artist, and that fits in with the timeline, but it doesn't fit in with Baroque art. So Baroque art tends to have like strong colors and like a cupid flying around. It's musical. Like if you were looking at it, you would be like, oh, there's so much movement in this painting. And none of his artworks, well, okay, some of the artworks, like the dogs fighting, they have movement, but not the way that a Baroque artwork has movement. And the colors don't match Baroque. So it's like, sure, he was in the time period, but I don't think, it's like right now, I could make a fresco painting. It's just, I'm not in the time period, but if you looked at it, you would be like, oh, that's so fresco. Fresco is the creation of Adam. That's a good example, you know, the finger god one. And that reminds me of Baroque art, like a lot more bright, usually. So I look at his artworks, I'm like, sure, okay, the whole internet says that he's a Baroque artist, but I wouldn't really say so. I would say just realist portrait with very muted colors. Like, sure, he uses red, but like a muted version of red. So I'm left undefined in his style, according to the internet. Artworks that are interesting. We're gonna start off with this one. You know that's probably blurry for you. Negro with parrots and monkeys. So I'm gonna use the word Negro because that's the title of the artwork. When I saw it, and I love the artwork. I just thought it was so cool. And then when I went to look at it online, I noticed that modern internet websites were calling it boy with parrots and monkeys. And I was like, well, there isn't even a boy in the painting, it's a man. So I was like, can you like don't change the title of the artwork? That's what it's called. And then I made an appropriation and I called it Negro with Parrots and Monkeys Censored, and then I censored it. And then after that, I then made another painting because I was like, wow, how time has really warped the definition of words. Because this guy doesn't look, I believe there are different definitions between Negro and nigger. And I wouldn't call this guy a slave, he's just a black guy. And then that's the definition in French. So I don't believe that I'm being derogatory by saying the title of the artwork, especially if you consider that it's a 17th century artwork. Oh yeah, and then after that, I was like, wow, how time has warped definitions. I wanted to make a painting about how time has warped definitions. So I called it Idiot Nigger Genius. And that's an artwork on its own, but it's pretty much just my point of view being like, okay, I'm gonna call the artwork what it is. So it's called Negro with Parrots and Monkeys, and I was looking it up, and I was like, because the reason I was looking it up is I wanted to see close-ups on specific parts when I was painting it, and I did paint it a little bit different because I was like, oh, I don't like the way you did the monkey's face. But I was looking at the animals, and there's a cockatoo in there, and I was like, why is there a cockatoo in this? He went to Amsterdam and then he went to Sweden and he was born in Germany, in case I didn't mention that in the beginning. So I was like, okay. And then I went down a bit of a rabbit hole and it turns out the rich people, by the way, I forgot to make a note on this. I'm pretty sure he lived with royalty. That's why he's in a castle and everything. That's his like social status. He's up there. He's living with the royalty. He's in a castle. Anyway, so the rich people, when they travel around, they'd steal animals that they liked. And I'm here like wondering like, okay, so maybe they weren't the only rich people that went and stole a cockatoo. There's other really cool birds in there, like this one, and I tried looking it up and I was like, I don't know what bird that is. But, okay, so if the other rich people stole birds, I don't know, if I looked at a bird, I wouldn't know what gender it is. So maybe they just didn't, my thought is, why did the birds not popularize over there? Like climate or something? Because I just thought it was so weird that no one, even this book here, was pointing out that there's a damn cockatoo in this Swedish artwork. So I thought that was so weird. So that's pretty much my thought on that painting. I think it's really cool. I think we're taking away from it by changing the title, and no one's really focusing on the fact that there's like really exotic animals in this according to where it was created. So when I was looking at other artworks, there's this one called Charles 11 of Sweden. I don't know what's going on with this painting. So you look at all his artworks and you can see the faces. Like, I'm not sure if all Swedish people look the same, or if David Klocker thought that all Swedish people look the same, but they all look the same in his paintings. But then you look at this one painting and I'm pretty sure that it's been restored because you look at it and you're like, that face kind of looks like it's been photoshopped onto the other face. And it's like, this was technically created, I think it was 6 years before his death. So it's like, did he decline in skill and then focus really hard on the faces? Because it kind of looks like the faces are created differently to the actual painting. But then all his paintings are portraits and animal portraits and animals doing things. So it's like, maybe he finished it and then someone was like, no, we want to do the faces differently. Because the way that his artworks look, I think most of them were commissions. That one's really skeptical. And then I looked through a bunch of other paintings and I thought I found a credible website. And then it turns out it's just entirely not credible at all, because I know this painting well because I was looking at it. And then this other one called A Boy with Parrots and Monkeys. And then they added an extra parrot in there and it's like really big and red and it's like in a different style, and you look at the painting and I would say that David Klocker did not paint that painting at all. I think it's either a fake or they've just restored it so badly that it just looks nothing like it. And then you find these other paintings. I saw this one first and I was like, what the hell is this doing here? It's definitely not a David Klocker artwork. And then I went to another website, Wikipedia, which seems more trusty at the moment, and I saw a really similar artwork and I was like, okay, yeah, judging by like geography, I think there could be a reindeer there. I just thought the first one looked really Santa. It looked really Santa. It looked really Christmassy. But then I saw the second one and I was like, oh, okay, this is more his style. Like, it's less blocky, and like the way that he fades his colors, you see it in the hair a lot. Like the edges of the hair, it's almost like he fades it away as if there's lots of shadow behind it. So I think that if you look at the faces and the hair and then make sure that it's like really blended. And there were a few artworks that really caught me off guard. I was like, wow, he's really good at painting metal. But then you look at this like closer into the artwork and you go, oh, I think this one's been restored too, or it's a fake or a replica of some sort. Because you see the tones in his original artworks, the whole painting tends to be like quite dark and muted. But then in these other artworks where there was like really reflective metal, and I think he's good at painting metal in general, but these ones, it's just an entirely different style. It's really contrasty. So I was like, I would have to see the artworks in person to be like, is this actually his painting? Am I actually looking at what this artist was trying to portray here? But I don't think so. So I think when you look at his artworks, looking them up, approach it with a lot of skepticism. Like over here, I'd say this is what his artworks actually look like. And then here, I'd be like, no, something's happened along the way. I don't trust that. You know what? I think that's all my notes on this artist. I think, okay, even though a lot of my information could be fake and is definitely hearsay and unreliable, and I threw in a lot of skepticism in there, at least I've shined a light on like an unfamous famous artist. So I think that's it. Yeah, I don't know who's next. Klocker. You don't really say the O. So the artist I'm talking about is mental blank. David Klocker Ehrenstrahl. Oh man, I have said this word like 500 times, but now that I'm on camera, it looks like I can't say it. think the loud part's far enough. Wonderful, you stuck around. I'm so grateful. I'm not continuing this because I was kind of like, at the time I was like, yeah, between actual art ventures like that I'm doing with my career, I can do this and like learn about other artists. But I'm just not anymore. I've got art to do. Like, I've got my own career to build. I don't need to focus on anyone else's. Plus, I follow this YouTube Great Art Explained, and it's gotten to the point where that guy was like, all right, anyone tell me like any artists that aren't famous? I'm like, well, you're already big. You're stepping on my territory. It's not really my territory. I just did one video, so whatever. I've got art to make. If you feel like checking out some videos that a year hasn't passed yet, they're on Patreon. I had to slow down my editing because, as I keep saying, I'm making art. So I turned off the subscriptions and you can just buy a video that you like. For example, I keep mentioning this one in my videos. If you want to learn how to switch from Adobe to Affinity, I've got 3 videos on that, and then 1 from Adobe to DaVinci. Which I just rage quit on that one, but and then I come back and then I continue learning. Oh, look how wonderful this book is. Oh, look, you can be an artist too. Check it out, it's on my website. Oh, actually, I would prefer if you just bought a book to enjoy instead of going to my Patreon. Just tank it. Yeah.